Antibiotic resistance has been a hot topic in the last few years. While it is currently considered one of the biggest health threats worldwide, you may not know that much about it and have many questions on the topic. In this video, to help solidify your knowledge on the issue, we will discuss what antibiotics are and why we need them, what antibiotic resistance is and its causes, the negative impact of antibiotic resistance, and what you can do to combat the issue. So let's get into it. The discovery and mass production of antibiotics in the early 20th century marks one of the most significant achievements in the history of medicine, taking away the fear of various infectious diseases and vastly improving the quality and expectancy of life. Prior to antibiotics, diseases such as smallpox, typhoid fever, tuberculosis, and syphilis were prominent and even deadly. To put it into perspective, infectious diseases were the leading cause of death up until the early 1900s, accounting for approximately 25% of the UK's mortality. By the mid-1900s, after the commercialization of antibiotics, this number reduced to under 1%. In the United States, the average life expectancy went from 47 years to almost 79 years, and the elderly US population rose from 4% to 13%. Additionally, antibiotics made many modern medical procedures possible, including cancer treatment, organ transplants, and open-heart surgery. With this revolutionary discovery for human health, antibiotics were regarded as a medical miracle. Now, let's get into antibiotic resistance. Antibiotic resistance refers to the evolution of bacteria to the point where they become resistant to antibiotic medications. Antibiotics becoming ineffective against their target bacteria is a public health threat. It is projected that there will be 10 million deaths each year by 2050 due to drug-resistant diseases. While antibiotics save lives, one of the main reasons behind bacteria's evolution to resistance is the overuse of antibiotics. We have loads of germs in our body, some of which are resistant to antibiotics. When we fall ill and take antibiotics to kill the bad bacteria that cause the illness, the good bacteria in our body are also killed. Now the bacteria that are resistant to antibiotics can grow even more. When we misuse antibiotics, like missing a day or stopping treatment, we give bacteria the opportunity to multiply and mutate into forms that are unrecognizable to the medication. In addition to mutations, bacteria can build resistance through gene transfer, which is when genetic material from antibiotic-resistant bacteria passes on to another bacteria. Resistance can also spread through the environment. Research shows that traces of antibiotics, antibiotic-resistant bacteria, and the genes that are responsible for the resistance can spread through soil and water. This can occur through human waste, animal waste, and pesticides. So now that we know what antibiotic resistance is, why does it matter? Well, antibiotic resistance threatens our ability to treat common infectious diseases. A growing list of infections such as pneumonia, tuberculosis, blood poisoning, gonorrhea, and foodborne diseases are becoming harder and sometimes impossible to treat as antibiotics become less effective. When infections can no longer be treated by first-line antibiotics, more expensive medicines and treatments must be used. This can cause a longer duration of illnesses and treatments, which require the attention of healthcare providers and hospital resources. As a result, this increases healthcare costs as well as the economic burden on families and societies. To reiterate, some of the negative impacts of antibiotic resistance include the ability to treat common infections, longer recovery periods, more frequent or longer hospital stays, more healthcare provider visits, and more expensive treatments. So how can we combat antibiotic resistance? Let's dive into 5 main ways. First, ensure to keep good hygiene by washing your hands with soap and water for at least 20 seconds. Hand washing is an effective way to avoid illness, prevent infection, and stop the spread of bacteria. By minimizing the spread of germs, bacteria will not have the chance to grow and evolve. Secondly, get vaccinated. Vaccines help prevent and decrease the severity of infection. By remaining healthy, you reduce your need for antibiotics, preventing resistance from occurring. Thirdly, ensure proper antibiotic use. Always use antibiotics exactly as prescribed. Don't stop treatment early, even if you feel completely fine after a few days. Additionally, never take old medication, as some old pills may no longer be effective. And do not take another person's medication. Antibiotics are specific for different illnesses, and certain drugs will be unsuitable for your situation. Fourth, practice safe food handling. The foods we eat can be contaminated with bacteria and other microorganisms. Thus, it is super important to handle food with care by thoroughly washing your hands, cooking surfaces, and utensils before and after cooking. It is also important to separate raw meats from other foods and cook foods to safe temperatures. Lastly, we should invest in antibiotic development. Antibiotic development has been stagnant for the last few years, so we've been using a limited number of antibiotics to treat all bacterial infections. This allows the bacteria to become accustomed to the drugs and develop resistance. Thus, we need to use our current knowledge of bacteria and drugs to create novel antibiotics. So while antibiotic resistance is an ever-growing issue, we have the tools and resources to slow it down. We just need the right people in charge to make a change and for everyone to play their part. To summarize, antibiotics are natural or synthetic chemicals that stop the growth of bacteria. Resistance occurs due to bacteria evolving beyond drug mechanisms due to improper usage and the environment. Consequences of antibiotic resistance include more serious illness, longer recovery, and more expensive treatments. However, there are many ways to combat this issue, including proper hand and food hygiene, vaccination, and investing in antibiotic development. Now that you know more about antibiotic resistance, you can confidently engage in the numerous conversations surrounding this topic. Before you go, we have a few true or false questions to solidify your knowledge. We'll give you a couple of seconds to answer each question, but feel free to pause the video if you need to. Question 1. Antibiotics can be used for all microbial organisms. The correct answer is false. Question 2. One negative impact of antibiotic resistance is more expensive treatments. The correct answer is true. Question 3. Antibiotic resistance can spread through pesticide use. The correct answer is true. So we hope that you have learned something new today about antibiotic resistance.